Okay, so I'm going to work on this piece here, which is the valve linkage, and it's made out of a piece of brass. So it's a few operations we have to do on that, and let me show you what I have for a game plan. Okay, so there's a few things we have to do here, and I think the order of operation is going to be important. So we're going to start with a piece of brass. It's 1/8 inch thick, 1/2 inch wide, and 1 inch long. And first step we're going to do is going to do layout on it. We're going to put some bluing on that, head over to the surface plate, get some marks on there for reference. And then after that's done, we'll start by center drilling the ends, each end, drilling and tapping the center hole here for a 256 thread. Then after we get that tapped, we'll continue on the mill and we'll lop off as much of this material as we can. I'll probably mill this down to a total of 1/8 inch here, so at least we have somewhat close to a square, and then we could put that in the lathe on the 4-jaw chuck, and that's where those little center drill marks will come in handy. Be able to set that up easily that way. Turn that down till it's round, 0.86 diameter, and run a tap on that, run a die on that, I'm sorry, and get some threads on each end. And just want to, and then after that we can mill this down to the I believe it's 9/32 high. So we'll just put that back in the mill on some parallels and take off equal amounts on either side, and then we could trim it to length. So just want to point out, I'm leaving it longer. It's got to be 11/16 overall length. 1 inch will give me extra on either end, and from a side view that'll give us some material that we could take the center drill profile off and leave us with a nice clean edge on each end here. So that's the plan. Okay, so here's the piece. Give you an idea of the scale of that. All right, like I said, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and 1/8 inch thick. So I think the camera can pick up the layout lines that I have on here. So we have the center in width and length. That'll get drilled and tapped, as I said before. And these are the marks that'll leave me with 1/8 inch. We'll get rid of these pieces here in the mill before we head over to the lathe to turn these turn these down to 0.86. So rather than having that big interrupted cut, these big ends rolling around there trying to lop that off, I thought it would be better just to get rid of that, as much as that down as possible. So the other thing I forgot to mention, I think, is this dimension here. The width of the body of this linkage is 3/8 inch. So alright, we'll head over to the mill and start by getting these two ends center drilled. Alright, so here's the setup I got going on here. I got the piece sitting on a parallel. Now the parallel is the same thickness as the piece of material that I'm going to be working on. So just to make sure that it's got a good bite, I just got a piece of copper wire, and I'll use that as some packing in front of that. And I set up a work stop here, so once I locate the center and the X and Y axis, it's just a matter of me flipping the piece over, and I'll keep my the dimensions the same. I won't have to find the center a second time on that. So let's get this secured. that snug down. And make sure we got that located. Okay. It's nice and tight. And we'll get this centered with the edge finder. I'll do the y-axis first, and then I'll do the x-axis. Okay, so use the digital readout, and I got the center of the material in the y-axis and in the x-axis. So to get this out, I'll get a small center drill in there, and we'll get a little center drill mark in that. I'll flip it over, put the workpiece right back against there, and do the same thing. Like I said before, I won't have to find the center for the other half, for the other side. Now I can't go too deep on this because it'll blow the sides out. So I got a real small center drill. I think that's a number 1 or a 0, and we'll get that down far enough where the point on the center has something to sit in, but doesn't blow out on the sides. So got to be careful with that. Alright, I don't know if you guys can see, but I still got a little material on either side of that, but the center is established. So let me get this turned around. I'll get the other side done, and I'll bring you back in a little bit. I flipped the piece around. It's now centered in the x-axis and the y-axis here, and we'll get a center drill, a number 50 drill bit, and a 256 tap. So, alright, so I have a 256 tap and spring-loaded tap guide, and we'll get that threaded real quick. Okay. Alright, so now I got the piece set up very similar to before when we center drilled those ends. But now we're going to start by milling off those 4 corners. So I have it centered, and we're going to be working off of the center line. So this piece has to be, when it's finished, 3/8 of an inch across. 375. So I'm going to be using a 3/8 diameter end mill. So taking into account of the radius and the offset, we'll be stopping at 375, and in the other direction minus 375. So I hope that makes sense. Alright, so this is another view, just to clarify what I said before is we're working off a 0. So the 0 point is the very center here, and it's a 3/8 of an inch end mill. So the radius is 1875, and this overall length of this body is 3/8 of an inch. So again, 1875 will bring us to the edge, and then 1875 for the radius of the cutter. So that should bring us to an overall length here when we're all done, 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going over just a little bit more right now. I went over 380, and after we're down to the depth of cut, which is 187 and a half, 3/16, I'll come back and I'll make a clean up pass at 375. So, all right, so I got the x-axis locked, so it's not going to move back and forth on us, and I'll just be using the y direction to feed, and I'm just going to take light cuts. You know, there's not a whole lot holding this in, and I don't want this ripping out, and you know, we got plenty of time to do this, so don't want to have any mistakes. Okay, so let's get started cutting some chips here. We're getting closer to something that looks like the finished part. So we got those 4 corners hogged out there, and that leaves us a little area to turn down to 086. So we'll get this centered in the 4-jaw chuck on the lathe. Alright, so I got this piece centered in the 4-jaw chuck here, and as you can see, it's with maybe half a thou, and I think that's fine. So let me get this out of here, and we'll get this turning. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of material here, but like I said before, I think before we start turning, I'm going to hit these corners down with a file a bit and just give it a head start. So let's take care of that. I have a carriage stop set so I don't crash into the piece here. Alright, let's go. Okay, so there's still a couple of flat spots on that. It's going to be slow and steady. He's going to win the race with this. Super light cuts. And do a spring pass. Okay, so we got 2 thousandths to go. I'm just going to hit that with a file. I'm not even going to try to take any more off. Okay, so these threads do not go all the way through. In the plans it says to have the threads just long enough to stop the nut and just leave a little free play in the linkage. Okay, so hope there's not too much camera shake here, but I figured this would give you everybody a better view of what I'm talking about. So this is just touching that now. So so with the lead of the die, there'll be more threads that have to go on there for sure. But like I say, afterwards I'll just fit each nut and just put the die back over it and run it down a little bit more until I get the fit that I want. So okay, so that's one side done. I'm going to flip it over. I'll do the other side the exact same way, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so here's the piece. It's all completed. Off camera, I went ahead and I trimmed this down. I took 110 thousandths off each end, and that gave me the 9/32 dimension that I needed here. I also went ahead and cut the ends of those threads off and ran the die over it just to get a little bit more thread on there. And so that's the piece. I cleaned it up and ran it over some 600 grit sandpaper to get a little bit of a polish to it. So, and give you an idea of the size of that. It's sitting next to a dime. So that piece is done, and we'll go back to the plans. We'll take a look and see what we're going to do next.